Biomarkers of homologous recombination deficiency are tests effectively that you can apply to a tumour or to a patient, I guess, that help us understand whether a normal process of repairing our genetic code, our DNA, is faulty in the tumours that they might develop. And that is used as a way of identifying if those tumours might have an Achilles heel, a particular weakness that we can target with cleverly developed, individualised and targeted therapy approaches. So those biomarkers are effectively a test that can be applied for a patient on them or their cancer that help a doctor decide how best to treat them. I think the field have made a lot of progress, and thankfully these treatments are now available for people with quite early cancers of those types, like breast cancer, and that is curing patients, which is fantastic news. But sadly, some patients still develop advanced forms of cancer where it's not possible to cure or eradicate the disease, and eventually the disease becomes used to these treatments, becomes resistant to them. So the challenge is working out how it becomes resistant, how it learns to cope with these apparently very targeted drugs, and then realizing that there's not one way of becoming resistant, designing treatment approaches that deal with each of what may be a few ways in which the cancer gets around the treatment we've given. And that's what everyone's trying to do at the moment, understand that. Not just what happens in the lab, what can happen for resistance, but what does happen, what really happens in the clinic for patients, and designing the treatments that help. We need to work with and involve our colleagues in what we call basic science. It's not basic at all, it's kind of fundamental science is a better word for it really, to really understand the biology behind resistance. And that's often work in a lab with white benches and pipettes and clear colourless fluids and plastic dishes. But it's very helpful, it's very contributory. Connecting those with the real questions that doctors have working with patients who are suffering with these diseases, so that power is applied to real problems in the clinic. That is the opportunity for what we call translational research. And when you bring those things together, that's why I get out of bed in the morning. It's suddenly some really meaningful conversations happen, because the fundamental scientists go, oh, I didn't really realize that's the problem you're trying to solve. And the clinicians go, I didn't realize that you could do something that could solve that problem. And then they talk, and then they redesign, and then stuff happens. It's really, really, really exciting to see that happening and try and make that happen. BRCA1 and BRCA2, which are a large part of what I'm talking about, are very significant because they were found to be the genes that, when a fault developed in them and could be inherited through generations, were responsible for the majority of the admittedly relatively small group of women who have very strong family history of breast and to some extent ovarian cancer. So most breast cancers happen for reasons that we don't fully understand. They're more complex than just inheriting a gene or living your life in a particular way. They're a really complex mixture of all of the genes that we might inherit and some environmental or lifestyle factors. But some are due to an inherited gene fault. So BRCA1 and 2 have been so important because they've led to an understanding of how breast cancer can develop, and provided an opportunity to develop a targeted treatment approach, even for a rare group. And I think that's helped the whole field understand that you don't just have to work out the common causes of cancer. You can find the rarer causes and then develop individualized approaches for them, and then find they're actually important for a bigger group than you thought to start with. It's taught us to care about individualized medicine, and BRCA1 and 2 have provided an example of that. So I'm very passionate about the concept of team science. It's an important development in the way we all work together, and the power is so much greater given that we've got so many disciplines of science, so many different kinds of cancer that our patients are suffering, that we have to do this as a team in order to make a difference, and our chance to make a difference is so much greater as a team. So that team, what does team mean? Team means communication between patients and their doctors, and that pairing and the scientific community to really set out what is the problem we're really trying to address here. Not what is the sexiest piece of science, but what is the problem that we need to address and how can we bring the power of science to it? There's a real opportunity for us to bring this together and develop new treatments. And we do that in partnership with the biotech and pharmaceutical industry. But there's a real contribution that patients, their doctors, and the fundamental scientists can make to how biotech and pharma develop drugs. And they know that. And that, I think, is also changing and leading to more smart, individualized medicine, effective therapies being developed.